Okay, welcome everybody. I'll see if other people come in moving through. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry about the changes. I apologize profusely. Beyond our control. The lovely Lucy had an operation on Monday and was hoping to be with us today, but she had complications. So she said she wasn't feeling up doing anything, which is a dreadful shame. But we are hoping to have her back probably February next year. And she's really lovely, and her information is if you were some of you would have had her information already, the handouts. Have you? So that'll be your homework.
Good.
So I don't think anyone else is coming in. If they do, I'll give a little click. So, okay, because we've got the lovely Lucy.
到哈尔滨到成都9天啊，那他们要去参加哈尔滨主办的海峡两岸青年冰雪节的活动，而且呢也到四川。
I'm not sure who that is, and I think that might be a bit odd, so we might get rid of them. Remove. They can ask to come back in. I've removed Pam. I don't want to remove Pam. Cancel. Pam, was that you, darling?
No, I'm very quiet sitting here.
So who is that? Sorry, guys, I think we might have somebody jumping in. Give me a second. Okay.
It shows his iPhone down in the corner.
Yes, yes. Very strange. Okay, well, if there's any problem, I'll remove them. I'm hoping then they're not.
There's a message there, Dawn.
Hello, I'm Anne. Oh, Anne. Okay, sorry, Anne. I didn't know who you were, sweetheart. Okay. I don't know how I can see myself here. Okay, good question. I have no idea why you can't see yourself. Let's see. Okay. Is there a button you can press that says audio and video? There should be audio and video at the bottom on the left.
Yeah, maybe put everyone on mute so
Yeah, I will do.
while you're talking.
Okay. Right, can you all hear me still? Okay, so apologies, as I say, for the changes, but I've got to give this talk tonight to the Melbourne Dowsers in Worcestershire. And so I thought I would try it out on you as we had an emergency, so I hope you don't mind. Oh, it's one more person. It says it's coming in again. Was that? Is that Anne? See if we can get Anne first before we start. Anne, you're here. Hello, darling. Hi. The magic of Zoom. You're very welcome, darling. Okay, so my name's Melanie, if anybody doesn't know, and I help Dawn run the network. And I'm going to show you, I've been doing this for maybe 10 years, not long as Dawn, sadly. And I've always been interested in the supernatural and things. So I've had some very strange experiences, but I thought I'd put some forward. Some of them are stranger than others. So I hope you're sitting comfortably, because I'm now going to see if I can share my presentation. Let's see. Now, can everybody see that okay? Excellent. Okay, give me a moment. So, apologies to Einstein, as I said. Because a lot of what we do as house healers, we actually work remotely. I thought that's exactly what we're doing. It's working with spirits remotely. So excuse the bad title. And I will start my presentation and we can talk about how we, as house healers, will remotely be looking into other people's lives and other people's situations, which is sometimes very interesting, sometimes a little strange, but obviously only with permission, as we all know. A lot of people don't understand what we do, however. They think it's a bit like remote viewing, which I suppose it is to a certain degree, but it's not exactly the same thing. We have to have permission, and we usually have a map, like a floor plan. And I give out a questionnaire as well when I do something as well. So I've got some ideas, lots of different questions that people can answer. And some of them won't make any sense to them at all, but to a house healer, they'll give you the information you're looking for. It's like, where does your cat sit? Anyone who's a house healer will know why I'm asking that. or do you have a dog? Things like that. So I'm going to use this one rather. So most people expect what we're going to be doing is looking for ghosts, for spirits. Mostly people that haven't gone on for whatever reason there is. Sometimes it's a memory or an event that has happened in the land that has stayed in that place, that's actually embedded itself in that situation. And if there's a house there, that's going to interact with you as well. And sometimes, now I've been reading lots, I read lots of books, but Christopher Strong, if anybody knows, is a wonderful, he's sadly passed now. He's a wonderful, he used to be a scientist who discovered dowsing. And he said the first dowse is the only valid dowse for any given question to which you need to know the answer. And you think, is it? But I found that to be very, very true. And you can't really play best of three with the universe. So I think that's a good thing I've got to use some of his wisdom in this talk. I hope you don't mind. So I have a website, and maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, I had a gentleman contact me, and he said he wanted me to dowse his house. So I asked for a floor plan, and I sent him my little survey, and I said, is there anything particular that you're bothered about? And he said, I want to know why all the people in my living room aren't talking to me. I thought, okay. So he described a whole crowd of complete strangers in his living room. And my question would be, who are you and what are you doing there? His question was, why aren't you talking to me? Which I thought was very curious. So I thought, okay. And he kept saying, I don't mind them there. I just want them to talk to me. And I thought, that is really odd, but okay. So I thought, well, I'll have a look. So I took away his map and I looked at it, and I couldn't find any spirit activity at all. I couldn't find any imprints of anything that should be producing this phenomena. There was nothing, absolutely nothing to show that there was a spirit or any kind of alien invasion or portal or anything in his living room. So I checked the rest of the geopathic stress and a few things. He had fault lines and all sorts of things. And I wrote up my report and I sent it back. Now, I was very new to this at the time. So I was very nervous that I was obviously missing something very obvious. But that was my first dowse. And every time I dowsed afterwards, I got exactly the same answer. So I thought, I'm sticking to this. And so I sent him my report and I expected to be told, no, you're wrong. I got a message, not from him, but from his wife, very nice lady. And she said, I am so grateful that you were honest. And I thought, okay. And she said her husband was convinced there were people in his living room, a whole crowd, not just a few. And she said, the problem was he has Parkinson's disease. So, and I had no experience of anyone with Parkinson's. I don't know if any of you ever have, but it was something I had never I'd heard of, but I didn't know anything about. And what he was seeing wasn't actually people. Because his medication was wrong, he was hallucinating, seriously hallucinating. And he was convinced that these people were in his living room and getting more and more frustrated because they were not talking to him. And his wife was trying to calm him down. He'd been to see psychics, he's been to see shamans, he's been to see everything. And every single one of them had taken his money and told him what he wanted to hear. And she said, there's no one here. So when I said, I'd love to say there is, but there isn't, she said, that's what he needed. And that was what she managed to get him to go to the doctors and get his medication corrected, which was wrong. So they all vanished and disappeared. Which is just it was one of the best lessons I learned, because don't assume that someone said they got spirits if they've actually got a spirit at all. It could be many different things. I don't know if other people have had that experience. I'd love to hear afterwards. So that was my first valuable lesson very early on. Second case, literally second case. Now, Bertie, this was in County Clare where I live, not Sligo. And I had from the Irish diviners, I was sent this lady. She was in a place called Fecal, which is not very far away from me. It's about 10 miles away from me. The original home of Biddy Early, a famous Irish witch. We won't go into that. But she was convinced that Hitler was in her bedroom and was most insistent that I came and sorted him out. And I thought, okay, this is curious. And so I took a map of her house. I could find nothing again in her house at all. So as she was so close, I said, would you mind if I just popped along and had a look? She literally lived 10 miles away. And so I had a look, went to Beagle, which is a lovely little place, and the dowsed answer is seldom what you expect. Very true. So I get to her door, go to the gate, beautiful little garden. I walk in and this beautiful path, every flower is white. I thought that was really lovely. Now I'm a horticulturalist. I used to teach horticulture. So the idea of this, I was thinking, oh, how lovely, a fellow horticulturalist. And even the door was white. It was beautiful, really, really neat and tidy in the middle of the countryside, which in Ireland isn't always tidy. And so she invited me in for a cup of tea, which you do. And we had a cup and tea. And again, beautiful white kitchen. And took me into the living room, stunning white living room. I almost needed sunglasses after a while I've been in that house. Every single room was pure white. Her husband was a farmer, so I dread to think where she put him. But she insisted that, Hitler was in her bedroom. So we went, she had 3 or 4 bedrooms, and eventually she took me into the main bedroom, which was the only place where there was any colour. And there was a pile of suitcases in the corner. Very old, hardboard, old-fashioned suitcases. And each one was piled up on one side of the bed. And she said, oh, that's her husband. You must excuse him. And I thought, well, okay. I said, so is he going somewhere? She said, no, that's Hitler. And I thought, what, in one of the suitcases? It was a little bit confusing. But she insisted by pulling one down and showed me. She said, there, Hitler's in my suitcase. He's in the bedroom. So what she'd got, her husband collected war memorabilia and was very, very keen on the Nazis for some strange reason. And so he'd got these suitcases, and apparently he had masses of things like this, but she'd relegated him down to the bottom of the garden, to the garden shed, where he could do no harm and didn't clash with her colour scheme. And the only thing he insisted to keep in the house were these, because they were valuable and they'd get damp in a shed. So there was no Hitler, but she was convinced that because she had suitcases with swastikas on, that she had Hitler in her bedroom. So we had to have a long, long talk. In the end, I had to put the suitcases on the floor, get some salt from the kitchen, which luckily was also white, and scatter it around and do a little hocus pocus, which I wasn't really doing, but I had to do it just to prove to her that I'd banished Hitler. There was no Hitler. But so sometimes people can be very insistent about what they think they have in their houses. And you don't like to be rude. You don't like to be, what's the word? You don't like to argue with them too much. But at the same time, she was happy. The husband then found somewhere else for the suitcases. And poor old Hitler, I don't know whatever happened to him, but he certainly wasn't in County Clare. I don't even think he made it to Ireland, luckily, but there you go. So some people can be quite insistent about what they think they have in their houses. Worry not, though, there are ghosts. This one was rather strange. Oh, we've got somebody else coming in. Give me a second. I think we've lost somebody else. Oh, I can't get this to work now. Excuse me a second. I cannot get my I have no idea why I can't get Pam back in. Sorry about this. So I live in County Clare. I live in the East Clare, and the biggest lake in Clare is called Loch Graney. I'm having trouble getting somebody back into the meeting. I do apologise. It's a beautiful place. It's the largest lake in Clare anyway, not very big by Irish standards, but it's still big for Clare. And I live on a little mountain that's just on the side here. And this is a wonderful lake. This is a really, really magical lake. And the lake is actually haunted by the Fae, the Anshi, the Irish fairies. And there's a lovely legend, actually Bertie might know this one, about Brian Merriman. Would you know Brian Merriman? Yeah. Brian Merriman fell asleep by the base of the bottom of our lake near Caher, and he fell asleep and he dreamt that he was taken into the fairy court by the Queen of the Fairies, and he witnessed a whole court case that they were holding. So it has a wonderful kind of mystical legend. And Grania, which she's the goddess Grania, this is called Loch Graney. I still can't get. So I've got 2 people in the. Excuse me a second, everyone. I hope you don't mind me doing this. I'm going to have to. No, I can't get this down. I cannot get anybody to. Oh no, sorry. You must excuse me. I'm going to have to come out. I've got 3 people in the waiting room, and I can't get any of them in. This is very strange. Okay, I'm going to have to carry on because I can't. So, stop share. Okay, no, I can't do that either. I have no idea what's going on with this mouse. Okay, I'm going to have to carry on. So, Loch Graney is a beautiful lake, and my local shop is there. It's like the only local anything that's there. And so, I was down there one day picking up a few pieces, and a friend of mine who I hadn't seen for a while was there, and she said, I'm looking after a house just down the road, and everybody knew it as the chocolate people's house, because they had like a chocolate company there where they used to make their own handmade cup chocolates, and they also kept donkeys. Donkeys were like a little kind of sanctuary for unwanted donkeys, likely. So everybody knew who it was and knew exactly that this place had been there for a long, long time. It's a very, very old farm, beautiful building. And she was house sitting. And I said, well, okay, are they away for long? She said, no, they're selling the place because he's very, very sick. He's not well at all. And so she said, and I'm not happy there. She said, it's really spooky. And I said, oh, really? Really? And I explained to her what I was doing, what I was learning to do. And she said, oh, would you come down and have a cup of tea and we'll have a look? So I went down there and played with donkeys, which was lovely. There was sadly no chocolate. And we went to a kitchen, beautiful kitchen. This is Annette, sadly, but it's very similar. And we had the tea and we were chatting away. And she said that she was staying there because they were selling. And they'd gone back to Holland because they were Dutch. And they closed down the business. And that they were actually waiting to sell the place. And she was staying there until they had to look after the donkeys. But she said, I am not happy. I'm not happy at all. I cannot sleep. I feel I'm being watched. It's really, really uncomfortable here. She said, it's a beautiful place. But she said, I can't wait to leave. And she said, and everyone who comes takes one look at it and leaves. They won't even entertain buying it. So she was very upset. And I still can't get this to share, sorry. And so I said, well, let's have a look around. So we walked around the house and she showed me where she slept. And then she showed me the bedroom where the couple had slept. And I did a bit of dowsing and I found that there was a water line and an earth energy line going through one half of the bed where the black pillow is on the left there. And it went straight through diagonally through whoever who was sleeping there. And I said, well, whoever's there would have problems with their heart. It's literally going through their heart. And so she said, oh, that's it. He's got terrible heart problems, but nobody knows why. They can't find out what's wrong with him. And he's also got like a trouble with his, they thought it was a brain tumor at one time, but they can't find any evidence of it. So this poor man had been sick for ages. Nobody could find out what was wrong. So he decided to move back to Holland. And once he moved, he improved because there wasn't a problem there anymore. So we understood from that obviously there was problems with the actual geopathic stress there, which was easy enough to correct. And I was showing my friend what we could do. And as we were going outside, I said, well, we're very close to the lake. So why don't we follow this water line and see where it goes? Because it's bound to head back to the river or to the lake. So we go down, we're walking down the path. And suddenly I walk through someone. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but if you've ever encountered spirits, everybody reacts differently, but I can feel them, but I can't see them anymore. I used to see them as a kid, but I don't see them anymore. And I felt it's like walking through a shower, cold shower. And I realized I'd walked through a spirit and I thought, okay, I stepped back a bit and I dowsed and there was definitely somebody there. And I asked if they could kind of communicate with me and I got very strong reactions with my rods. And so I said, are you, is this your house? And he said, no. I got a very strong no. I said, but you're here. Did you work here? And he said, yes, he worked here. So it was obviously a farm labourer. It was a big farm at one time with about 30 acres. I think it was only about 5 now. And so I asked him, do you know you're dead? Which is the first thing I always ask him politely. Are you aware that you've passed on? And he said, yes, he knew that. And I asked him how he died. I said, you died in the middle of a field. Are you okay? What happened? And I said, was it a heart attack? No. Was it an accident? Yes. So we understood to a certain extent that it was a farm accident. It was very hard to get any more information out of him because he'd been there a very long time, I'd say about 80 years. I kept asking for a date. And so I said, would you like us to help you move on? Because the gentleman was obviously waiting. And I got told, no, not yet. And I kept saying, is there something you're worried about? Are you something you don't want to move? Do you want somebody to come and get you? Is there somebody that you're waiting for? You ask all these questions. And nope, nope, nope. And so I thought, okay, fine. And so I said, well, we're going to go back into the house and I'll come back before I leave and I'll double check you're okay. And he didn't seem to have any other business. He didn't seem to be waiting for a relative or a child or a dog or anybody. I've tried all sorts of things. And but it was none of his relatives. So we went back up to the house. And that's when I found what he was waiting for. There was lots of rooms, and one of which was a little tiny box room, like a little kind of small room where you'd keep odds and ends. And one end of it, there was a wardrobe in like a recess where all the doors had been taken off. So it was just literally a frame of a wardrobe with a rail at the top. And it was right next to, adjacent to where my friend was sleeping. And she said she always felt there was someone watching her. And so we had a look, and I thought, no, there's definitely somebody in here. And I could sense someone, but I couldn't work out where they were. And the rods showed that they were in this little corner. Excuse me. And so I asked a few questions, and they did want to talk at first, but when we eventually got her to talk, it was a little girl who must have been about 3, we think. She didn't quite know how old she was. Very frightened, very confused, and very scared. Now, normally children, somebody comes to take. And I was really surprised. I've never found a child before, because there are certain entities that will come and take children. And they're usually kind of like very, very positive females that will come and do that job. But there was nobody. So I wondered whether she'd died in some kind of fever or coma or something, because she didn't seem to realize she was dead either. She didn't understand what dead was. So my friend found a teddy bear, and I found a ball that we'd passed earlier on. So we sat on the floor and we played with the toys. And she was very curious. You could tell she was very curious. I taught for many, many years over here with the Heritage in School scheme for 23 years in national schools, which are like primary schools. So I love children. I adore children. So I thought, okay, curiosity is the one thing I've always found that they loved. So we started playing a little game, and you could tell that she was interested. She wanted to join in. So eventually we managed to talk to her, and eventually we managed to get some kind of information out of her. But she was very young still and didn't really understand what was going on. So it suddenly dawned on me. I thought, maybe this is what the gentleman's waiting for. So my friend stayed and played with our little friend, and I popped back outside to our farmer, and I said, there's a little girl in the house. I said, is she anything to do with you? And he said, no. I said, are you waiting for her? And he said, yes. I thought, oh. I said, you're not related? In Ireland, people have very big families, and community and family are very, very important. And he was most insistent that she wasn't any relative at all, and it even wasn't the same time. I asked him all sorts of questions, but he wasn't going to go without her, which I thought was beautiful. I've always referred to him as my compassionate ghost. So he'd actually wanted to wait for this little girl. He was aware that she was there. And I said, why didn't you go into the house? He said, not allowed, not allowed. I asked him all sorts of questions and got, no, not allowed. So he obviously felt he wasn't permitted to enter the house. And so I invited him in. It's a bit like inviting a vampire in. My friend was joking, but he was very sweet. And he obviously followed us on the waterline. And we managed to get them both in the same house. And I asked him to help her cross. So we did a little kind of ritual. We just said, is it possible for someone to come and take the little girl, and someone to help our farmer to leave as well? And he left. They both left, just like that, gone. And they literally disappeared, which was so lovely. And the house lit up. It was like lights, like the sun shone. It was the most beautiful feeling. And this poor little kid who'd been stuck in this corner for goodness knows how long, we couldn't work out, at least 50 or 60 years. She was so happy to go. You could almost hear the laughter. It was lovely. And my friend said after that, not only did she not worry about sleeping there anymore, she felt much, much happier, but the first person that came along bought it. So there was a happy ending. So that was good. And I don't know what happened to the chap in Holland. I hope he got better. But my compassionate ghost, I've always thought that was interesting, because they had no physical connection as such, but there was obviously an awareness of each other. And do you mind awfully if I can't think I can shut this down at the moment. Let me see, stop sharing. No, it's not going to let me stop sharing. No, oh, it is. Okay, I'm just going to let somebody in. I do apologize. Yeah, I'm having trouble letting people in still. There we go. I should be able to share again. Okay, I hope I'm in the right place still. If I know where we are now. So here we are. Okay, so the gentleman left, the little girl went, and everyone was happy and the house sold. So there are very, very strange people left in the atmosphere sometimes. We don't always know when we're house healing who they are, but it was fascinating. I learned an awful lot from that gentleman. And the last one I thought I'd discuss with you is a stubborn ghost. This ghost was also in Clare, where I live. And he was an unexpected person, I must admit. Through dowsing, we can delve into the information to an extent to which we have only just started to appreciate. However, at the end of the day, all we can acquire is naked information. We have to fashion it into something that we can then comprehend. So we don't always understand what we're getting. I live in East Clare, and this place would have been nearer a place called Scariff, which Bertie might have heard of. It's a little tiny town, tiny middle of nowhere, but there's an awful lot of mountains where we live, and this is on one of the mountains. This is not the house. This is just to show you the kind of places that are numerous where we are, and I should imagine are in many other places in Ireland. There's an awful lot of houses that are left, the old houses. I was told, we came here when the Celtic Tiger first started. So an awful lot of the farmers were buying new houses, but to sell their land, if it had an old house on it, that meant that you got planning permission to build a new one. So a lot of the houses were just left to pull down. The house I'm not in at the moment, but my house is 150 years old, had no windows, no doors, no electricity, no plumbing, no sewage, nothing. It was just like this, but it had a little bit better roof than that one. And we bought it for what I could not buy a bicycle for in England, but it was in the early 90s. It was very, very, very reasonably priced. So there's an awful lot of places like that. I met a gentleman. He approached me and said that he'd heard that I did house healing, and his name was Aaron, very nice chap, very new age young lad, but he was very sweet. And his lovely girlfriend Emily was from Dublin, and she was working from home, and they'd rented one of these old houses that had been renovated. And if you can look at the map here, you'll see that on the left there's a shed and tool shed. Half of it is still derelict, but the little half at the bottom is actually, they had bedroom, office, they had a kitchen, a bathroom, and a little kind of living room area with a porch. And he said, we've moved in. He said, it's really rural, it's middle of nowhere, but we love it. He did a bit of local building work, and Emily worked from home. And I don't quite know what she did actually, but she was always on the computer, bless her. And they were a lovely couple, but they said they got to this place, it'd been recently renovated, but the plumbing wasn't working. Not at all. They couldn't have a shower. Some days it would work, some days it wouldn't. It was just so unpredictable. They were always having trouble with the plumbing. And as they were renting, they were actually talking to the landlord and saying, we need a plumber. He said, we've had so many plumbers, we've run out of plumbers. We can't find out. They all say there's nothing wrong with our plumbing at all. Nobody can find a physical thing wrong with our plumbing, but it doesn't work. And so I said, okay, I'll have a look. So I looked at the map and I did a bit of dowsing, and I found there was two very strong water lines, one of which goes through the soakaway, as you can see, and one goes through the well. And there was also two earth energy lines going right the way through the section where they were living, which explains why they weren't sleeping very well. And had terrible trouble sleeping, Emily. And there was also, I don't know how many of you are familiar with spirit lines, but there's a very strong spirit line. The purple line going just above the green is a spirit line. And I've only come across a few spirit lines in my time, but this is the strongest one I've ever found. And it went right the way through their living area, the kind of kitchen living room area. And it went through the adjacent old building, which was complete ruin. So they'd obviously been two houses at one time, and they'd only renovated half of one. And so this spirit line was going right the way through, and it went through their plumbing as well, which didn't help. And so I thought, okay, we'll have a look at this. And I walked around. I'll show some more pictures. This is not the red door, but to the left, this is their little place that was done up. So you're actually looking in the the kitchen. The kitchen is the first window, and then the living room, just where the chairs are. And if you look, you can see right the way through to the other side, there's another window. So the windows are in line, which is quite unusual in Ireland. And I went round the back and I dug a little hole and checked the plumbing and I checked the usual things. I went to agriculture college, so we did an awful lot of plumbing and glazing and bricklaying and chainsawing and all sorts of things. So I thought I'll do the practical stuff first, make sure there's nothing that they have missed. And so that was the back of the house, and most of it was derelict from the old building that still wasn't done. And that's my map under the rock. You can see there, I was dowsing there, and that's where the water was going through. So I found the well underneath all these stones eventually, and there were stones and wood piled up on it, but I found the well and there was nothing wrong with the well. And I got my little red flags. I love my little red flags, and I followed the water line. And I followed the line, as you can see, obviously that was where a pipe was put in at one time. Cracked pipes are a good indication that there's something going on, as well as the building work that they were doing to put them in. But this had been a long time ago. And I followed the lines again, away from the back of the house, past the well. And there's the old building, which was, as I say, had not been renovated at all. It was a complete mess. And so I followed them and they went into that building. So I said, do you mind if we go in? And he said, oh, that's where the plumbing is. And I thought, okay, that makes no sense at all, but okay. So in the cupboard, as you went in on the left, there was this. And there was a filter and a pump and all the gubbins. And it all looked fine. I've got most of this. We have a spring well and a filter in our own place, because there's the nearest place to us is about 5-6 miles away. And there's no utilities or anything, not even a dustman. So everyone has their own water and wells. So I'm very familiar with this, and I thought, well, it all looks okay to me that I'm not a plumber, but I can't see anything obvious that was wrong. And so we were wandering around, and I said, what's happening with this place? Are they going to do it up? And he said, oh, I hope not, he said, because I sit in here all the time. And that's where he used to sit. There was another chair to the side of him. He said, I like sitting here. And I thought, okay, everyone to their own, because the other house was lovely. And he said, I like to sit out here. He said, because my girlfriend doesn't like me smoking in the house. So he said, I sit out here with the old man and I smoke. I thought, what old man? And he said, the old guy that's here. I said, what, is he one of the farmers? Does he pop in for a cup of tea? He said, no, he lives here. And I thought, okay, not mentioned anybody's living here. I said, is it like, is he squatting? And he said, no, he's not physically here. I can feel him. And I thought, okay. And so I looked at my map, and where they were sitting was right the way where the spirit line went through. And there was 2 chairs, the little table. And Aaron used to sit there quite often. Now, a lot of the houses look a bit like this on the inside. My house looked like that when I first bought it. The pink walls especially. I remember the pink bedroom, which terrified the life out of me. I don't like pink. And I do wonder, with the suitcase, whether Hitler's been here too, but we will never know, will we, really? And so a lot of these places are left as is. There's even the Sacred Heart and the crosses. It's very sad. I love looking at the old houses. They're fascinating. There's so much character in them. And I'm glad we managed to bring us back to at least some kind of living standard. So this is my map again. And we are now looking at the purple line, and that was going through their kitchen, and that was going through there. And so I thought, okay, so obviously there's something going on here. And so I had a word with Aaron. I said, so what do you do here? And we looked at the house again, and you can see the back, you can completely out of the back window. And this is the house that's directly opposite, with the same window, which is directly opposite, which is where the spirit line was going through both. And as you can see through the back and out through that one as well. So there was a direct line of sight, which I've never seen in a place like this. And I've been to an awful lot of houses, but it felt as if they were connected. And I felt that this was where the spirit line was going through. And anyone who knows about spirits will know that plumbing and spirits do not mix. They definitely don't mix. And so I said to Aaron, so what do you do then? He said, I put a bit of peat on the fire, which is always peat fires are the most gorgeous smelling fires in the world. I really miss my peat fire. And he put a couple of briquettes, as they're called, on the fire, and he'd sit there with his little chair, and his friend, as he said, would come and sit with him. Obviously a man that used to live here a long, long time ago. He had an idea of what he looked like, but he'd never seen him. He said he felt him. And often he'd have a Guinness with him. Very, very generous. Got to have a Guinness. And often he'd sit there and roll him a cigarette, because he said he liked a cigarette too. So he'd leave him a little cigarette. and they'd have the cup of tea. Cup of tea. He'd often make a brew, and they'd sit there together, and he'd smoke, and he'd drink, and he'd talk. And he said it was very companionable. He felt he wasn't alone. He said he used to love sitting out there, and his girlfriend said he'd spend hours out there sometimes. So that was curious. So I sat down with the gentleman. I had to get another chair. He wouldn't let me sit in his chair. He was most insistent the man was sitting in that chair. I couldn't sit there. So we found another chair. We sat there and we chatted away, and I dowsed as we were talking. And I got the men had been there for 87 years, I think it was something like that, 86, 87 years. It was a long time. And I asked him, did he know he was dead? Yes. Did he have a problem? And he said, yes. And I said, you do realize, I think there's lots of other spirits backing up. You're like it's like a bottleneck, because he wouldn't move. He was just sat there. So there was all these other spirits trying to get through, which is what I think it was interfering with his plumbing. It just wasn't working. So I asked him, I said, well, you not want to see, were you married? He said, yes. Did you have children? Yes. 3 children. And I said, did you not want to see them? No. Most insisted he didn't want to see any of them. And I thought, okay, we don't want to ask really. And I said, okay, is there anyone else you'd like to know? No. I just kept this very strong negatives every time I spoke to him. And I said to him, okay, is there something you're frightened of? And there was silence for a minute. And then I got a very strong yes. So we went through between us, Aaron and myself, trying to work out what it was. And in the end, he said he was frightened of hell. That was the one thing I got the strongest response from. Being a good Catholic country, he was terrified of hell. And so I said to him, okay, why were you, what, do you feel guilty about something? And I got this kind of weird kind of, and I thought, okay. And so I asked again. And when we went through all the things we could think of, it was like 20 questions. Aaron was having great fun. But we ended in the end, we got that he was gay. The guy had been gay, but never been allowed to be openly gay. This was a time when it just wasn't allowed. And he was a lovely chap. He was very, very chatty. And Aaron was very fond of him. But he explained that I said, but you were married. And we kind of got the impression that he had no choice. And he had no choice having children either. So the poor man had been there as a unhappily married man with children when he just wanted something completely different. And he was terrified, even though he'd never been with anybody else other than his wife, and he'd never been unfaithful to her. He was terrified that when he went to heaven, he would go to hell and he would be completely damned. And we sat there thinking, what can we do? And then we were chatting away, and I said to Aaron, hang on a minute. And so I said, do you have a recent newspaper? Because recently, in the press, we'd had an awful lot of trouble with the priests had an awful lot of trouble, including my local priest, who the news of the world had fooled into revealing himself as gay to a reporter who was undercover, and was splashed all over the national newspapers. There was an awful lot of problems with gay priests at the time. And it's not a problem because I felt very sorry for them. They hadn't done anything, but they were just not allowed to be who they were because they were celibate. So there'd been this big uproar locally in Fecal, where I'd been saying about Hitler before. And that was particularly unpleasant. And I used to work for the Bishop of Killaloe. I used to be his gardener. And that's where all the priests that were in trouble used to go. So I got to know them all. They were really lovely guys. I felt very sorry for them. And so I said to him, okay, that's very unfortunate. But also, there'd been a referendum very recently. Now, Ireland, I've been here since the 90s, early 90s, 92. And it was a very, very different country than it is now. And one of the things I thought I would never see in Ireland was this. So there was a referendum and same-sex marriages were approved, which was wonderful because I had an awful lot of gay friends who were very, very nervous about talking about it. And I had a couple of friends, 2 ladies who lived in Limerick who'd had a breeze block thrown their window while they were asleep and narrowly missed their heads because they were both gay. And they were terrified, absolutely terrified. And I found them a place nearer where we live where they didn't have any trouble where we lived. But they had an awful lot of strange looks, but they certainly weren't under threat like they were in Limerick. Limerick is a very curious place. So I had a lot of sympathy for people who'd been trying to kind of like be who they authentically were. So Aaron found a magazine with the pictures like this, and he found a newspaper with about the priests, and we sat and we read them and talked to him, and suddenly, again, he was gone like a lightning. He just disappeared. And I joked to him that he didn't want to go to hell. It would be probably for a priest, bless them. So he just went, and suddenly there was the atmosphere changed once again. And what was most surprising was Emily came running out from the house and said, "What did you do? The plumbing's working." And we think that what happened was when he moved, the spirit line unblocked and everyone went through, which was wonderful. And so the plumbing was working. And what was curious, the window where the house, where they're actually living, above that window that you could see right the way through, there was a cat box, or cat bed on a shelf. And the cat would only sleep above that window. That was its place to sleep. And Emily said, "You won't believe it." She said, "The cat won't sleep there anymore. The cat's just jumped down, screamed its head off and run off." And he said afterwards, it hasn't ever slept there again. They had to find it a new place. They love negative energy. So that spirit line backing up was obviously very comforting for the cat. And the cat was most put out. But so we had a cup of tea in the house this time, and we were explaining to Emily what had happened. And Aaron was very enthusiastic about it, very excited, because I taught him to dowse, so he was very, very excited. And so we had a look at the map. He had an OS map, and we wanted to see where that line went from down from their house. And this is when we took a ruler, this is what we found. It's an old famine graveyard. So this is obviously where all the spirits were heading, which I thought was wonderful. So I'd never had such clear confirmation before. You read about this, that they're going somewhere, usually a graveyard or a church. But this was an ancient, well, a very old famine graveyard, which is now turned into a beautiful park. And as you can see, there's lots of yew trees, which is lovely. A very good symbol of that. So our lovely farmer finally got to where he was. And that's it, folks. And thank you for listening. Okay, I'm just trying to see if I can share this again. This is not letting me share very well. There we go. So, stop sharing. There, we're back. Hello, everybody. I'll unmute everyone, shall I? I can mute all. Does anyone have any questions? I don't seem to be unmute you. No, cancel. Right. You should be able to speak. Has anybody got a question?
No, that was just really interesting, though. Thank you so much. I love your story.
They were just a bit crazy. Has anybody ever come across the spirit line before?
That was my question. I've never heard of them before, so I found that very interesting. You said once you were able to help him, so he could go where he needed to go, and then it unplugged the line so the people. So spirit just have certain lines that they move along. That I found that very interesting.
Paul Devereux calls them spirit paths or corpse passes. They have many, many names. There's actually, when I was training, I trained with a couple of shamans. I'm a druid, so they were kind of druid shamans. Caitlin Matthews, some of you may have heard of her. She's very well-known author. I trained with her in a place called Hawkwood, which is a really, really old, haunted building, and in the Cotswolds, and it's a grade 2 listed building. And we went there, and we were not told anything about the building. We weren't told anything about the history of it. We were just paired up and told to go in each room and sort it out. And nearly every room we went into, there was a problem. And I had a lady I was working with, I didn't know other than her name. And in the particular room, and the first spirit line I ever met, it was like a nursery, and there was a door to one side, which is apparently where the nanny used to sleep. And so we were in there and we dowsed this really strong line going through the line, but we didn't know what it was any more than you would the first time. It's a strange line. And the line was blocked. And she wanted us to work out what it was. We found exactly where the spirit was blocked, but we didn't know why. And then we had to dowse again, and we found that the nanny, whoever was in this room originally, was blocking the line. And there was a very young soul, not a child. It was a we reckon it was one of the local young girls, maybe about 15, 16. She was trying to get past and was terrified of the spirit. And so nobody could get through. So we had to decide, we had to say, well, what we're going to do now. So we had to then deal with the spirit that was blocking the line first. And then we had to release that spirit so that the others could flow through. That's my first ever experience of a spirit line. But it was so visceral because you could feel the energy flow. It's like suddenly this energy flew through the room. And I don't know where that one went. I'd love to have known when that one went. But Caitlin was most insistent that, you know, we'd found the right one, which is terrifying when you don't know what you're doing. But baptism by
No, thank you. That was very fascinating. I just was always under because I do some mediumship and things like that. I just always thought that, you know, they had more freedom to move. I wasn't aware of the line, so I found that very interesting. Thank you.
I think maybe it's the ones that get stuck or not quite sure where to go. There's an awful lot of people that will die in comas or in accidents or just don't want to go, or they're being held back by someone. I have a lovely neighbor that when her husband passes, she will not let him go. And I worry for him. I mean, he's very ill at the moment. I keep thinking, you can't really interfere, but I know her grief will hold him back, and that's very common. But I've come across that a few places with people not letting their spouses or their family go. So, Bertie, you're looking as if you're going to say something.
I am, because it's funny that you should mention. When I doused my house, it was part of an exercise, and I strangely found a spirit line going through directly through what I have a pool room and a bedroom, and yeah, so I just doused and asked some questions, and it transpired that it was dating back to the Bronze Age, before 4,500, 4,200, I think, years. And I asked how many people were using it, and they said it was about 30 people, and they were using it to travel to the sea, which is about 20 miles from me, in December. So it obviously was a ritual of some description. But I used the crystals to divert it just outside the house, and strangely, my daughter never felt comfortable in that room, and always didn't want to sleep there. So it'd be interesting to see if she's comfortable in now.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. It's interesting. I've had a few people that said they've had them, but you must have do you have any tombs near you? Any raths or tombs or?
Sorry?
Do you have any
Tombs?
megalithic sites near you?
There are quite a few, and a lot of ring forts, and what we call the Fulafiyas, dating back to the Bronze Age. There are quite a number of those.
You have hundreds in Sligo, I should imagine. That's the most.
Yeah, they're very, very popular, very frequent. Yeah. So.
And does your daughter sleep there often, or is she?
No. When she was a younger girl, she's actually living in Dublin now. But even when she comes home, it's not as one of the rooms that she would have wanted to stay away from. Strangely enough, yeah. So I thought it was strange.
Does your cat or your dog? Do you have I know you have a dog. Do you have a cat?
I don't have cats now, but I used to have cats. But they wouldn't have access to that particular room. But yeah.
What does the dog think of it?
Buster, he has his own places in the house that he seems to favour, but no, he's quite okay. He's quite okay. Yeah.
You've obviously done good with the crystals. Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else come across the spirit line, I wonder?
Yes, I did, Melanie. It's Tracy.
Easy. Yes, darling.
Yeah, I did it. It was when I did a practice for a friend, and her husband had died. And she kept showing me these pictures of this shape moving across the window. And she wanted me to do the house healing because she had a lot of trouble with neighbours and one thing and another. And I detected a spirit line, and I didn't really understand what spirit lines were. So I mapped it all out. And the spirit line, and there was a couple of other lines, they all went towards this old building that was at the end of a street. I never quite got to grips with what it was. It was in Eagly in Bolton. And anyway, so I dosed the spirit line, and I did some soul rescues and things like that. And then the phenomenon with what she thought was her husband going across the window stopped.
Oh, wonderful. Well
and
done.
She was very upset about it.
She was upset.
But as I explained to her, and it ties in with what you said earlier, because of her grief, she was holding on to him.
Not healthy for either of them, is it?
Yeah. So I did upset her, So it was a learning curve. Anyway, she gave me a nice review, so that's good. So yeah.
Curious, isn't it? But we have going back to Bertie saying, we have a wedge tomb, or we had a wedge tomb along the lane here. And I'd always been looking for it, but it wasn't marked on the map. It was just vaguely marked on one of the maps because we have the bog above us. So it's just fields up here. And my son, funny enough, took the dog over the bog one day, decided to take a shortcut across the land because there was no cattle in there. The farmers were ground if there was no cattle. And he came across this amazing, beautiful wedge tomb, kind of 4,000 years old. And we bought on Bielton of all days. So I thought, right, we're going there. And so being Druids, we asked the farmer, who was a lovely guy, we said, would you mind if we used it occasionally for some festivals, if there was some cattle in the field? He was grand, he's fine. And then one day we were coming back from work and we saw a big excavator tossing it into the hedgerow.
Oh my goodness.
I was in pieces because it was beautiful. It was like pulling a boon on the burren, and not quite as big, but it was still beautiful. And so I went up and said to him, and he said, "Oh, I need the extra 20 foot from the cattle." I thought, it's a monument. It's thousands of years old. And so I went to my neighbour Paddy across the mountain there and had a word because we'd been here maybe a couple of years, so I didn't really know what I should do. And Paddy said, "Oh," he said, "if they mess around with that," he said, "he's going to have bad luck." And I thought, well, yeah, I don't wish that on anyone, but I wouldn't have touched them either, any more than you touch a wrath, which is a fairy form, in case anyone's. And so anyway, we left it. And within 6 months, he went from being cementing out there and being very fit to suddenly dropping dead, riddled with cancer he didn't know he had. And that was it within 6 months. And his dog was shot for chasing sheep, which he'd never done before. And Tommy, his son, who's still a dear friend of mine, I adore Tommy, he suddenly had kidney failure. And I was really upset about that because he's a lovely man. And so I went and looked, and there was a spirit line going right the way through from the dome of the actual wedge tomb, right the way down the mountain. And it went through the little tiny house that's there. There were 13 people in a 2-roomed house. You'd know what I'm talking about when you're tiny little places. And Tommy had told me that that's where his dad had grown up and all the brothers and sisters. So it was a tiny house, and he would never sell it. So once the father died, it became Tommy's, and Tommy said, "I'm going to sell it. It's bad luck." So he sold it, and he sold it to an English couple who I think in the last 20 years have been trying to move in and still haven't managed. And within a couple of years of moving in there, she ended up with MS, and we've never seen her since. I swear, it's the line going through it. And your man comes and goes and comes and goes. He never stays for long, and he's gone a little bit strange as well. But we won't go there. But I can't help feeling that it's the spirit line. And there's a lot of the locals that would actually love to put it back again. And I have a friend up in Cager Fields, an archaeologist.
Yeah.
And he said he would actually get a team of archaeology students and put it back if we could find all the pieces, but we'd need permission. So we're hoping. So I don't know if that'll correct the spirit line or not, but anyway, sorry. Anybody else have any questions for me? All gone quiet on me.
Yeah, I was just thinking, there's still a spirit line here, but it goes above now so that we don't want to slow them down on their journey.
I remember you saying this.
Yeah, it's speedy. It's quite a quick space that you just want to not disrupt, really. And I don't know about anyone else having experience of them, other lines aligning with the spirit line, because I noticed on your plan there was lines aligning with the spirit line. Yeah, and we've had things happened have often been to like
you're breaking up,
definitely darling. A gap in a fence where these you know what, it's power cuts and internet connection that I've like hotspotted here, so I will listen. It's all a bit precarious.
You say there's gaps in hedges and all sorts of things?
Yeah, so there's sort of collision points, if you like, if we disrupt it.
Yes.
Keep it, because there used to be, the old house was built and the line went along the back of it, And then I think when the extension got put on, it blocked the line a bit.
Yes.
And definitely the lives of the people who came in after changed
I can imagine.
after the extension. Yeah.
Another curious thing with extensions, I don't know if anybody's come across extensions in their house healing work. I've had several. Where was it? Not Limerick. It was near Limerick. Couple said they'd got this really old place and they'd done it up, and they built this wonderful extension. It was a big extension, all glass and very open and airy. Because the old houses, I mean, my house is so dark, you have to turn the light on in the day to walk across. The windows are tiny and put thick walls, so it's not very bright. And she said that they got so depressed with the darkness that they built this enormous, great kind of sun extension on. But it was as big as the house. It was very, very big, beautiful. But she said that I had nothing but bad luck ever since. And so when I dowsed, I got that the house didn't know what the extension was, and the extension didn't understand the house. So they just weren't melding. So we had to do this little ritual where we introduced them both, and we gave offerings to both and apologized to both. And she said after that it was lovely. She said that the old house started to get light and bright. So, but she said sometimes we just do these things without asking permission first, or expecting it just to happen because we want it. So Mike's nodding there like mad.
Melanie, it's Dawn here. I'm still here. I probably will lose my signal soon, but my the client that I've just finished, her house was kind of squeezed into half of a lot. So it used to be a full lot with a house on, and they sold half of the lot and then squeezed a house on it. And there was a real sense of this house feeling almost like orphaned, because there was just this disconnect. So just like you were talking about with the extension, I had to do a fair bit of reconciliation around that loss and sense of not being wanted. And it also had a spirit line. And what was really interesting about this spirit line was it was actually coming from the local hospital. So it was originating from there. And it was a bit like a superhighway. And it went right through the chair that she would sit at and she would see these kind of dark shadows. So not one to mess with spirit lines, but I just rerouted it over the roof. So similar to what you were saying. Was it Tabitha was saying that? Oh, sorry, Joe. So we just took it over the roof because there was no room either side really, and all of the little shapes and things started to dissipate. But it was just interesting when I looked at Google Maps and then I saw the trajectory of the spirit line, and it was coming from the hospital. And interestingly, Joe, I agree very often. Other features will align to that. So there was an earth energy line, almost kind of a tram track next to that, and then there was also intersected with the water line as well. So very often these earth energy features are just interlinked.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Do you mind if I ask a little question, please?
Please do.
On my own land, there's a pretty substantial underground stream. It's about 30 meters deep. But I've noticed that their graves dating back 500 years, but they're buried underneath or on that particular line, which I found strange. And I'm pretty new to dowsing, but I just bizarrely found that they were all on the same line.
Well, you'd also know that the Celts would have been very, very respectful of water and
yes,
an entrance to the underworld, wouldn't they?
True.
Which is why, I mean, even in England, they used to throw things in the rivers and believe that the spirit of the lake or the spirit of the spring or the spirit of the ocean, they give offerings.
Very good.
I was actually, the British Museums must be about 8 years ago. They did this amazing exhibition. Oh gosh, I wish they'd do it again. It was one room completely full of all the Celtic relics from all over the Celtic world.
Yes.
There was the Gunnerstone cauldron, the big one, the Denmark one, which is vast. I had no idea. It had little steps to get up to look inside it, and it's absolutely stunning. But they brought all these things from all over the Celtic world that had got relevance, and they'd actually put them all together in one room. The lights were low. It was like going into a church. No one was allowed to take a photograph. And it was the most respectful exhibition I've ever been to in the British Museum. I've been to lots of, I love the British Museum. But it was all this incredible stuff. And most of them were offerings to the underworld, to rivers, great lakes or streams. So I'm wondering whether that's why they would have put the bodies there as well.
Possibly, yeah.
Traveling.
Yeah.
Is there an archaeological kind of link there with anyone you can talk to?
I possibly could, Melanie. Yeah, I could maybe explore it further on Google Maps, like Dawn was saying, and see if there's any interconnections along the path.
Maybe there's an archaeological society. I mean, where you live is a stunning landscape. It's a bit like the borough where I live.
Yes, there's quite a bit. Yeah.
So there must be someone, the Heritage Council.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. On Tashkir, yeah, the Heritage Council, some of those, yeah, probably good. Yeah.
If you do find out, Bertie, we'd love to know. I think it'd be
I will, of course, yeah. Because I thought it was strange. Just something else now, and I'm sorry for taking up time, but just years ago, we my wife and I, we lost a little premature stillborn baby, and we decided we'd bury the baby on our land. So one day dowsing, I asked my Roz for a powerful energy point. I may not have been specific enough, but I asked her, where's the most powerful energy point in this particular field? And strangely enough, it went straight to where the grave was. Well, now there might have been an emotional attachment there, but it brought me directly there. But when I dowsed, there was a radius about say 6-7 meters of when I checked the aura, there was and there transpired that there was it was like not a ley, but I asked was a ley line. I said it was coming from the grave. Now it didn't originate the far side of it, but I thought it was very strange. It's this line of energy started from that point of the grave, traveling.
It wasn't a Colleen, was it?
Sorry? It
wasn't a Colleen?
No, it wasn't. No, strange enough now.
There's places called Colleens. We got one around the corner to us, which is where people used to bury unbaptized.
No, this was the only place on my land that it was on, and this energy point seemed to have established itself where the baby, where the body was buried. Yeah.
Bertie,
yes,
I have heard that so many times about earth energy lines having an intelligence and actually moving into places of need or places of high energy, or I think it might have been Rory Duff, who was talking about them actually moving through children's playgrounds or through hospices, or so there's an intelligence there that I know. I think that earth energy line absolutely, saw that as a special place and kind of wanted to bring its energy to that as well.
Yes.
And I'm not surprised it's a power spot on your land as well, because power spots get bigger through focus. So it's a place that you go to remember. Absolutely. And to just share those memories and that love. So that's going to make that spot incredibly powerful.
Yes, and it's interconnected to another power spot where the same there's an underground river going underneath it, and has a power spot beside my house. And I just brought a little stone from the sea, Strand Hill, the weekend, just as an offering to it, and I'll just have to see how that works too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Developing. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm aware we're kind of over time. Is everyone okay? There's lots of questions. I've not been able to get them out of the chat yet. I apologise. I will respond to them when I put it up for recording. Anybody?
Yeah, I think a couple of people have had to drop off, but lots of thanks. It was an unexpected treat.
Good. I'm glad about that.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And I think it's just good to mention that we're building our lineup for next year. We've got 2025 coming. So it is, you know, I think it's been a great year. We've achieved a lot, Melanie and I, and we brought some great people to speak, and more to come next year. And we are planning, we just need to work out when, a house healing conference, so an online house healing conference that we will we will be kind of working with the network to bring forward. And I'm also looking for some volunteers to be interviewed by me for my YouTube channel. So if you're doing a piece of work, you know, house healing, dowsing, or other forms of, energy work and healing, love to hear from you. And we can get a little interview going and get you up onto YouTube. And we'll also link it on our page as well.
And can I also mention, as we're looking for speakers, if any of you want to give a talk, you'd be very welcome.
Absolutely.
Emma, I'm looking. I was actually talking to Shannon, who should have been here today, and I was asking maybe she'd talk about her energy tools.
Hey, sorry, am I the only Emma in here?
Oh no, you can hear. Thinking about your sound work and your bio.
Well, if anyone's interested, I can talk about energy and sound healing and stuff like that. If anyone's that interested,
everybody will be interested, and it intersects with the house healing as well. You know, how to bring sound into the healing of the land. So, absolutely, would love to have you on the lineup.
Okay.
Later, Emma. Anybody else? Let us know, please do. It'd be lovely to involve everybody in things. And if you've got anybody you can think of you would like to invite, please do. And we'll drop them a line and see what they'd like to do. So we'd always open to suggestions. So don't be shy, okay? So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And I'm very, very grateful that you put up with me. I was terrified thinking you were thinking, oh, Lucy's gone. We're going to be so sad. But Lucy's coming back. Lucy will be back. We love Lucy.
Yeah. We love Lucy. We do.
Thank you. Thank you.
She's a really nice person.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.